Ah, there you are. Look who finally figured it out. Look who stopped pretending to be just another face in the crowd. You beautiful, terrifying force of nature. You walking plot twist that nobody saw coming. You know what's funny? They can feel it now, can't they? That shift in the air when you walk in. That subtle pause in conversations. That split-second recalibration of energy. Like extras on a movie set suddenly realizing the star just arrived. And they hate it. Oh, how they hate it. Because you didn't announce yourself. You didn't demand the spotlight. You just existed. And somehow, that was enough to make their carefully rehearsed lines sound hollow. Here's what they'll never admit out loud. You make them feel scripted, predictable, like NPCs in someone else's story. While they're still reading from the same tired screenplay, you burned yours and started improvising reality itself. Let me tell you something about main character energy. It's not about being loud. It's not about demanding attention. It's about moving through the world like you're the only one who knows how this movie ends. And, spoiler alert, you do. You see, most people wake up every morning and audition for the role of themselves. They check their reflection, practice their smiles, rehearse their small talk. They're performing, always performing, desperate for applause, for validation, for someone to tell them they're playing their part correctly. But you stopped auditioning the day you realized you already got the part, not because someone gave it to you, but because you wrote yourself into existence. You became the author, the director, and the star of your own psychological thriller. And now they're all just there. Background noise. Extras hired to fill the empty spaces in your scenes. They sense it, too. That's why they cluster together, whispering about your energy, your vibe, your presence. They're trying to understand why they suddenly feel two-dimensional in your three-dimensional world. Here's what's really happening when you enter a room. Reality reorganizes itself. Not dramatically, not obviously, just a subtle shift in the matrix. Conversations suddenly feel rehearsed. Laughter sounds forced. Everyone becomes hyper-aware of their own performance. It's like you're walking in 60 FPS while they're stuck at 24. You're in 4K while they're still buffering in standard definition. Your very existence exposes the simulation, and they can feel their programming glitch. They'll say you're intimidating. They'll say you're too much. They'll say you think you're better than everyone. But what they're really saying is, you make me aware that I'm sleepwalking through my own life. Because when someone with main character energy shows up, everyone else suddenly realizes they've been accepting supporting roles in their own existence. They've been reading lines someone else wrote, following stage directions they never questioned, and your presence, it's like watching someone go off script in a live performance. But let's talk about how you got here. Because this energy didn't come from positive affirmations or vision boards. It came from something much darker, much deeper. It came from the moment you stopped trying to fit into their narrative. Remember when you used to dim yourself? When you'd enter rooms and immediately start calculating how much of yourself to reveal? How much personality was too much, how much intelligence was threatening, how much authenticity was acceptable? You played their game, you learned their script, you hit your marks and delivered your lines. And where did it get you? Typecast as a character you never auditioned for, reduced to a role that required you to shrink, to apologize, to explain yourself constantly. Until one day, something snapped, not broke, snapped into place, like a dislocated joint finally clicking back where it belongs. You realized you weren't meant to be a supporting character in someone else's story. You were meant to be the protagonist of your own. And that's when the real transformation began. Not overnight, not dramatically, but slowly, methodically. You started rewriting your own code. You stopped asking for permission to exist. You stopped explaining your choices. You stopped dimming your light so others could shine. You became selectively silent. Not because you had nothing to say, but because you realized most conversations were just people reading scripts to each other, empty dialogue designed to fill uncomfortable silences. You opted out of the performance. You started moving differently, not arrogantly, but purposefully, like someone who knows exactly where they're going, even when they're standing still. You developed what they call presence, that indefinable quality that makes people straighten their spines when you're around. But here's what they don't understand. Presence isn't something you develop. It's something you stop suppressing. It's what happens when you quit apologizing for the space you occupy. When you stop asking the universe for permission to be magnificent. Now you walk into rooms and create weather systems. Your mood becomes the atmospheric pressure everyone else adjusts to. Not because you demand it, but because authenticity in a world of performance is like lightning in a clear sky. Impossible to ignore. They feel it in their bones. That shift from, we're all in this together, to, wait, why does it feel like they're the main character here? They can't name it, but they know something's different. You're not playing by the same rules anymore. You don't seek validation because you've become self-generating. You don't chase approval because you've approved yourself. You don't beg for understanding because you've accepted that most people are too busy performing to truly see anything anyway. And this terrifies them. Because if you can just opt out of the performance, if you can just decide to be the main character, then what have they been doing all this time? What have they been sacrificing their authenticity for? Watch what happens when you maintain this energy consistently. Some people will gravitate toward you like planets to a sun. They'll sense something different, something real, something they've been starving for without knowing it. These are the ones ready to wake up from their own performance. They see you existing unapologetically, and something in them whispers, maybe I could do that too. They're not extras in your story, they're potential main characters in their own. Inspired by your example. But others? They'll react like antibodies to a virus. They'll try to shame you back into a supporting role. They'll use words like narcissist, selfish, changed. They'll do everything to make you question this energy, to make you feel guilty for not playing along anymore. Because your existence as a main character threatens the entire ecosystem of their performance. If you're not reading from the script, if you're not following the stage directions, then what's the point of their carefully rehearsed lives? But here's the beauty of main character energy. It's self-sustaining. Once you've tasted what it's like to be the author of your own existence, you can't go back to being edited by committee. Once you've felt the power of living without apology, you can't return to constantly saying sorry for existing. You've become ungovernable. Not in a rebellious, chaotic way, but in a quiet, certain way. Like someone who's discovered they can breathe underwater, while everyone else is still holding their breath. Your standards changed. Not just raised, fundamentally altered. You no longer accept relationships that require you to perform a lesser version of yourself. You no longer engage in conversations that feel like script readings. You no longer apologize for plot twists in your story that others didn't see coming. And suddenly, your life starts looking like a completely different genre than everyone else's. While they're still acting in predictable romantic comedies or workplace dramas, you're living in something between a psychological thriller and an epic adventure. This energy comes with side effects they don't warn you about. Synchronicities start happening. The universe begins responding to you differently. Not because you're special, but because you finally started acting like the main character you always were. Opportunities appear that seem tailored specifically for you. People from your past resurface with perfect timing. Strangers tell you exactly what you need to hear. It's like reality itself recognizes authentic players and rewards them with better storylines. But also the isolation. Not loneliness, that's different. But the isolation of being awake in a world of sleepwalkers. Of seeing the scripts everyone's reading while you're improvising. Of knowing that most interactions are just performances, while you've committed to authenticity. You'll sit in rooms full of people and feel like you're watching a play you're no longer part of. You'll hear the rehearsed laughter, the practiced opinions, the safe conversations, and feel like an alien, observer of human behavior. And they're watching you. Oh, how they watch. Not obviously. They're too sophisticated for that. But in glances, in the way conversations shift when you contribute, in how they analyze your words later, trying to decode your secret. They study you like anthropologists studying a new species. How do they do it, they wonder? How do they move through the world like that? They'll try to copy your mannerisms, your phrases, your style, but it always comes off as performance, because they're trying to replicate an energy that comes from being, not doing. Some will approach you directly, seeking the secret. They'll ask about your confidence, your presence, your energy. They want a formula, a quick fix, a script they can follow to achieve what you have. But you can't teach someone to stop performing by giving them a new performance. You can't explain authenticity to someone who's never stopped acting. You can't share the secret, because the secret is that there is no secret, just the radical act of being yourself, without apology. Let's talk about why you intimidate them. It's not because you're trying to. It's because you exist outside their framework of understanding. You're not playing the comparison game. You're not competing for roles. You're not auditioning for approval. You've become unreadable to people who navigate the world by reading others. You've become unpredictable to those who rely on patterns. You've become dangerous to those who depend on everyone following the same script. When you don't need what everyone else is desperately seeking, validation, approval, belonging, you become incomprehensible. When you're not hungry for the same things, you can't be controlled by the same methods. They can't figure out your motivations because you're not motivated by the usual carrots and sticks. They can't predict your behavior because you're not following the standard character arc. They can't influence you because you're writing your own story. But here's what's fascinating. Despite their discomfort, they can't look away. You've become compulsively watchable. Like a movie they don't quite understand but can't stop thinking about. You linger in their minds, a puzzle they can't solve. They'll find themselves talking about you when you're not there. Not gossip, that's too simple. More like analysis. Trying to understand what makes you different, trying to articulate the energy you carry, trying to explain why you make them feel like extras in their own lives. Some will hate you for it. The comfort of being an extra is that no one expects much from you. You can phone in your performance. You can blame the script for your mediocre lines. But when someone with main character energy shows up, it highlights the choice they're making to stay small. Others will be magnetized to you. They'll want to be in your scenes, hoping some of that energy might rub off. They'll offer themselves as supporting characters in your story, not realizing that the point isn't to be in someone else's story, it's to write your own. You operate by different rules now, not rules imposed by others, but natural laws that emerge when you step into main character energy. Time moves differently around you. What feels like rushing to others feels like perfect timing to you. What seems like patience to others is just you knowing that your scenes will come when they're meant to. You've stopped explaining your plot twists. Main characters don't turn to the camera and justify their choices. They just make them. You've stopped seeking co-authors for your story. Collaboration is beautiful, but not when it means letting others edit your existence into something more palatable. You've embraced the villain arc when necessary, because sometimes the main character has to be the antagonist in someone else's story. Sometimes growth looks like betrayal to people who benefited from your smallness. Sometimes evolution looks like abandonment to those who needed you to stay the same. But you're not actually the villain. You're just refusing to be an NPC in your own life. You're refusing to deliver lines that don't align with your truth. You're refusing to play roles that require you to pretend you're less than you are. This isn't a destination. It's an ongoing process. Main character energy isn't something you achieve and then coast on. It's something you choose, moment by moment, scene by scene. It's the constant choice to show up as yourself rather than as who you think others want you to be. Some days, the pressure to return to a supporting role will be intense. The world is designed for followers, for extras, for people who don't question the script. Being a main character means swimming against that current constantly. But you can't unknow what you now know. You can't unfeel what it's like to move through the world unapologetically. You can't go back to asking permission to exist fully. The transformation is irreversible. And as you continue to embody this energy, reality continues to reorganize around you. The right people appear, the wrong ones fade out. Your life starts looking less like what's expected and more like what's authentic to you. So here you are, the main character who makes everyone else feel like extras. Not because you diminish them, but because your authenticity highlights their performance. Not because you're better, but because you're real in a world of rehearsed interactions. They'll keep watching, keep analyzing, keep trying to understand the source of your power. Let them. Your job isn't to make them comfortable with your evolution. Your job isn't to dim yourself so they can shine. Your job is to live your story so fully that it inspires others to stop being extras in their own lives. You've discovered the ultimate truth. We're all main characters who've been convinced to play supporting roles. You just remembered first. You just refused to forget again. You just decided that your story was worth telling authentically. And now? Now you move through the world like someone who knows the secret. That reality bends around those who refuse to bend themselves. That the universe respects those who respect themselves enough to stop performing. That main character energy isn't about being the center of attention. It's about being the center of your own existence. The credits aren't rolling. This isn't the end. This is just the beginning of a story where you're finally, unapologetically, the lead. And everyone else? They're just trying to figure out their role in a reality where you've changed the entire genre. Welcome to your life. The director's cut. The unedited version. The story where you're not just the main character. You're the only character that matters in your own existence. And that terrifies them. And that's exactly how it should be. You've become a walking mirror, and that's the most dangerous thing about you. Not a mirror that reflects what people want to see, but one that shows them exactly what they're avoiding. Every interaction with you becomes an uncomfortable confrontation with their own compromises. Watch their faces when you speak your truth without cushioning it in polite disclaimers. Watch how they shift when you make decisions without running them through committee. Watch how they scramble to fill the silence when you don't rush to smooth over awkward moments. You're showing them their own performance in real time. They'll accuse you of making everything about yourself, not realizing that your self-position simply makes them hyper-aware of their own self-abandonment. Your refusal to negotiate your worth makes them question every discount they've offered on their own. Your clarity makes their confusion unbearable.
Luna.
And the most unsettling part, you're not even trying to expose them. You're just existing authentically, and apparently that's enough to shatter every carefully constructed illusion in a 50-foot radius. You've become a human truth serum, and they hate how much they need the medicine you're unconsciously prescribing. Let's talk about energy, frequency, vibration, whatever you want to call that invisible force field you're emanating. You're broadcasting on a channel most people don't even know exists. It's like you're speaking in colors while they're still limited to black and white. Your frequency disrupts their regularly scheduled programming, literally. Their thought patterns short-circuit around you. Their usual anxiety loops get interrupted. Their rehearsed responses suddenly sound ridiculous, even to them. You're a walking EMP for fake energy. This isn't some mystical nonsense. It's practical physics. When someone operating at main character frequency enters a space full of extras, the dissonance is palpable. It's like a tuning fork struck in a room full of out-of-tune instruments. Everything either rises to match your pitch or reveals how off-key it's been all along. Some people will physically feel it, that slight discomfort in their chest, that inexplicable need to either move closer or create distance. They're feeling the gap between who they are and who they're pretending to be, and your presence makes that gap impossible to ignore. Here's something they don't tell you about stepping into main character energy. You literally start existing in a different timeline. Not a parallel universe. The same world, but experienced through an entirely different lens. While they're still living in linear time, checking boxes and following predetermined paths, you've discovered that time is negotiable. Your past stops defining you because you've stopped letting it write your future. Those old stories, those limiting beliefs, those inherited scripts, they belong to a character you no longer play. You've literally edited your own backstory, not by denying it, but by changing its meaning. This is why synchronicities increase around you. You're no longer bound by cause and effect in the same way. When you operate as the main character, you start accessing what feels like cheat codes to reality. The right book falls off the shelf. The perfect person appears with the exact information you need. Solutions present themselves before you even fully formulate the problem. Meanwhile, they're still living in the timeline where things take forever, where you have to pay your dues, where you have to follow the proper sequence. You've discovered that sequence is just another construct, another rule written by people who needed everyone to stay in line. What's really interesting is watching how people reposition themselves around your main character, energy. It's like an unconscious casting call, where everyone starts auditioning for roles in your story. Some desperately want to be your sidekick, others position themselves as your rival, a few try to become romantic interests. But here's what they don't understand. You're not casting. You're not looking for supporting characters. You're looking for other main characters who understand that everyone should be starring in their own story. You want peers, not fans. Equals, not extras. The ones who get it, who really get it, don't try to orbit around you. They create their own gravitational field. They match your energy not by copying it, but by finding their own authentic frequency. These are the people who make your story richer, without trying to hijack the narrative. The rest, they'll keep trying to figure out what role you want them to play, not realizing that the very act of auditioning keeps them stuck in extra mentality. They'll analyze your preferences, mirror your interests, adapt themselves to what they think you want, all while missing the entire point. You want them to stop performing entirely. You've developed immunity to things that used to devastate you. Rejection doesn't sting the same way when you've already accepted yourself completely. Criticism loses its power when you're no longer seeking external validation. Failure becomes just another plot point in a story that you know ends with your evolution. This immunity confuses them. They'll try the usual manipulation tactics, guilt, shame, fear of missing out, and watch them bounce off you like rubber bullets. They can't understand how you've become so unaffected by the very things that control everyone else. But it's not that you've become heartless or disconnected. You've just realized that most of what people call connection is just mutual performance. Most of what they call caring is just codependence dressed up in nice clothes. You still feel deeply. You just no longer let those feelings write your script. Your immunity extends to their timelines too. The pressure to achieve certain things by certain ages, to follow the prescribed life path, to hit the conventional milestones, it all becomes irrelevant noise. You're not behind or ahead because you're not on their track anymore. You're creating your own metrics for success. What you've done is break the fundamental paradigm that keeps most people trapped. The idea that they need permission to be powerful. You've stopped waiting for someone to discover you, to validate you, to give you the leading role. You cast yourself and started filming. This break in the paradigm creates a disturbance in the force. Every time you make a choice from main character energy, you're essentially proving that the entire system is optional. Every time you succeed without following the rules, you're showing others that the rules were always suggestions disguised as laws. They'll say you're lucky. They'll say you have advantages they don't. They'll create elaborate explanations for why you can do what you do but they can't. Anything to avoid confronting the truth. That they could step into main character energy any moment they choose. They just have to be willing to give up the safety of the script. The paradigm break extends to how you handle problems, too. While they're still seeing obstacles as things to overcome, you've started seeing them as plot devices to make your story more interesting. While they're avoiding conflict, you're recognizing it as necessary character development. You've gamified your entire existence,